Hi, welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Buddy the Elf. So, in terms of the subject matter here, really quick, let me just mention that Will Ferrell is one of my favorite comedians. I think that he has a magic power that turns what should be a very bad movie into something that's absolutely delightful and, soon gathers something of a cult following. So, using Will Ferrell as some subject matter was a pretty easy choice, even though we're a little bit far removed from Christmas. I'm publishing this in February, but hopefully you'll forgive me for being a little bit late. I just thought this was a really fun caricature to do. So, we're going to be talking about a couple things in this video. A little bit about Will Ferrell, a little bit about the caricature, but also Mike Henry's fat pencil. Yeah, I know that's a little bit odd. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on, so stay tuned. It's going to make sense a little bit later, I promise. So real quick about the caricature. Now, I got to tell you, drawing something that is a resemblance of somebody else can sometimes be a tricky thing. I think if you look at this picture right now, I got a pretty good peg on what Will Ferrell looks like, but sometimes you can lose that resemblance or gain even more resemblance as you try to render the form of your figure. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about form here, and when I say form, let me just kind of define it as the thing that tries to create this look of three-dimensionality. A line is something that we use to kind of draw right now, right? We put in our sketches with lines, but lines are kind of the simplest way of trying to say what form looks like. Later, I'm going to try to put in some shadow and some light and some color to try to give that more of a three-dimensional formed kind of look. And you can kind of see that starting to happen right now with some of the things I'm doing around the eyes. So again, some of the resemblance is there in the eyes and the nose, but did I really get the form around the chin and the neck properly? Maybe, maybe not. I think I may have had it at one time, I lost a little bit, and so on and so forth. But in the photo reference that I used for this, I will say that there is this thing that's happening where his chin is so far down, with his jaw being open, that it starts to meld into his neck a little bit. And that was what I was trying to kind of capture here. Maybe I got it, maybe I didn't. I think I'm close, but I got it about as close as I can. And I think the mouth is really what throws it off a little bit. Although I do like what I did with the eyes, the hair, general shape of the head. So, caricatures are kind of weird little things. There's elements of them that can be like kind of spot on, but if one little line is a little bit off, suddenly you've lost that little kind of magic spark that makes it perfect. And at the end of the day, art, for me anyway, is a large experiment, trying to kind of problem solve and hopefully solve enough of the problems that at the end I can deem something to be a success. I don't know that I 100% think this is a success, but I think I got pretty close, and so I'm happy to publish it. And I'll just kind of leave it at that as far as the caricature is concerned, or at least my own self-critique. Now, without further ado, I'd like to talk about Mike Henry and his big fat pencil. I know that sounds dirty, I apologize, but again, this is going to make sense in just a second. Now, I've mentioned Mike Henry before in a previous video. He's an artist that I follow on YouTube. He does a channel very similar to the one I do, although I must admit his is much more evolved, much more successful, and much better than anything that I'm doing here. I want to point this out because Mike Henry is an inspiration for what I'm doing on my channel. So if you have any interest in what I'm doing, go check out his channel. I will put a link in the description, although fair warning, he's got a pretty large audience. Go see him. His stuff is great. I love it, but he's probably not going to get much help from me in terms of his subscribership. He's got a big audience out there, and it's well deserved. So a long time ago, when I started seeing his videos and I started getting interested in digital art, he published a video for this Procreate software that I use that offered up a brush called a fat pencil. And what it really is something that's meant to kind of simulate a rough sketch pencil. And I liked it. I found it to be very comfortable to work with, and I started using it, or at least some approximation of it. I made my own tweaks. But I use it today to kind of start out my first renderings, my first sketches when I'm roughing out ideas. It's just something that I feel comfortable with. I feel like I can just move my hand around the page very quickly and just rough out quick ideas, which is how composition comes about, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, I want to give Mike Henry full credit for this because he's the guy that put this idea in my head, this idea of a fat pencil, and having something like that's kind of like my old go-to to get me comfortable when I'm warming up to draw. Here's the thing about it, though. I don't put a lot of faith in the magic of brushes, and I just want to kind of go on the record as saying that. because there's a lot of hype out there about brushes, especially for Photoshop, but also in Procreate. And it's all about how, brushes, if you have the right one, can somehow magically make your artwork amazing. And I just don't know that I agree with that mentality. Now, your mileage may vary, whatever you're going to do, but I just kind of feel that, when it comes down to it, we're talking about rendering form, right? And rendering form starts generally with some sort of a rough outline, usually in the form of a sketch or some rough colors laid out, just kind of that blockout thing that I was mentioning before. And if we're using line as our first stage of rendering form, well, then it's your line drawing that dictates whether the final piece is going to be any good, or the steps that you took in between to get to the final version. Again, your ability to render shadow or light. And a brush isn't really going to help you in knowing where to place those elements. Now, can a brush give you some good cheats in terms of a texture and stuff like that? Yeah. And I use the word cheat loosely. I think cheats are a wonderful thing when it comes to art, and I employ as many of them as I can because that helps trick the eye. That's what we're trying to do. And so if I can find some sort of a trick that fools your eye into thinking something is more three-dimensional than what it really is, then good, I want to use it. Cheats are okay as far as that's concerned. But a brush magically saving my painting and making it this beautiful thing that it wasn't already going to be, I don't know I believe in that, because again, it goes back to your outline, your rough sketch, your line drawing, the thing that you kind of start to move into the final stages, and a brush doesn't help you get there. Now, I've kind of said my rant about that, but so having said that, let me just kind of move on and say that using that fat pencil has just made things comfortable for me, but the whole point of bringing this up was to talk about the new fat pencil, and that's what I'm using right now. Mike Henry recently published a new updated version of his fat pencil video where he introduced actually not only this new fat pencil brush, but also about 3 or 4 more other ones that all have different properties. One that kind of mimics an airbrush, one that's kind of a rough paintbrush, almost mimicking like an acrylic or an oil paint. There's like kind of an inking brush, and so on and so forth. This one is a really interesting one, though. It's almost like a soft lead pencil, and you can see here that as I'm drawing this, if you've ever seen any of my other videos before, this is a grand departure from the way that I usually lay out my line sketches. I'm doing something of a black and gray, kind of like a tonal rendering here, and that's not usually the way I kind of start off my work. I'm very much bold outline, color it in, add light, add shadow, and kind of get it that way. But there is kind of a school of thought, or a technique might be the better word here, that uses a black and gray scale rendering and then applies color over top, and the shadows kind of fill in on their own. If you can see, that's kind of starting to happen right now at some varying degrees of success. You can see the green jacket is looking pretty good, but I need to do some more work on the flesh tones, for instance. And that's fine, but the reality here is that this was just an interesting way to kind of approach a painting that I'd never really done before. And the soft brush, the fat pencil, kind of mimicking kind of a soft lead pencil, is really just kind of an amazing tool to do it. So I spent a lot of this video hyping up Mike Henry and his big fat pencil, which I'm sorry, I know that sounds dirty, but I just couldn't help myself. The reality here is that it's a great brush. If you have any interest in digital art and you're looking for something kind of comfortable to work with, again, it's not a magic trick, it's not a magic tool that's going to solve all your problems. But if you're looking for something that kind of feels comfortable in the hand, I gotta fully and wholly endorse it. He's not charged anything for it, it's just a download. So head on over to his channel, as I said before, link in the description. Check it out, and hopefully you like it just as much as I do. As a matter of fact, now that I'm mentioning it, I use a bunch of his other brushes in this little kit he supplied to do some of the other elements of this painting as well. For example, we already talked about the fat pencil, but he also has something called a turpentine brush. It's the one that kind of mimics something of an oil paint type texture, and I'm going to use that when I get into the white areas of the sleeve, cuffs, and the collar. The hair, I think, also had some element of that turpentine brush as well. The thing about this is that I'm trying to render 3 dimensions, as I mentioned before, but texture is a large way of trying to kind of fool the eye with that also. So again, not a magic trick that's going to solve all your problems, but if you can get a brush that will kind of help you mimic something that looks furry or shiny or rubbery or whatever surface you're trying to kind of fool the eye into believing, well then by all means, go for it, I say. So here's my first use of that turpentine brush right now, going into the sleeve, and then again you'll see it in the collar as well, adding in some of the highlights. And even though it's not perfectly rendering fur, it is fooling the eye a little bit into believing some textures there, and that was kind of the point. Now, I will fully admit here, I was a little bit lazy just kind of throwing in a background, but I am going to kind of apologize for it a little bit and just kind of say that it was loosely inspired by the movie poster that I got the original image from. So, that's getting close to the end here. I'm just going to take a moment and say thanks for tuning in. As always, the shameless plug now, please take a moment, click on the subscribe button, the big red one that says subscribe. Don't forget to like, add a comment, leave your thoughts, any ideas, or any questions you may have. And last but not least, please share. Put this up on your social media page. Just give me credit for it, and any link that sends them back to my channel would be greatly appreciated. I'm looking for all the subs I can get. I'll have more content posted soon. In the meantime, again, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. Take care.